Welcome back, guys. What I thought I would do is have a little fun before we get into the final content for ancient Greece. So one of the most famous ancient Greek battles during the Persian War is called the Battle of Thermopylae. And the movie 300 is about this particular battle. Now, what I've done is I've recreated this in a way that kind of shows you how mythology, now this is not a mythological battle, it actually did happen. The historian Herodotus tells us about the Battle of Thermopylae, or the Hot Gates. But what you're looking at is 300 Spartans, and they're blocking a path for the Persians to get through. Now, different stories, because again, a lot of these stories were verbal, say that the 300 Spartans defeated 500,000 Persians, 250,000 over a 6-day period. So what you're looking at is I created 250,000 Persians fighting against 300 Spartans. Now that's kind of the legend of the battle. And that's not likely how it happened. There weren't only 300 Spartans. There were also about 5,000 other Greek soldiers from different city-states that helped out. And the Persians wouldn't have all been coming all at once. Regardless, it was a big victory for the Spartans because they held off the Persians and they were able to stall them so the rest of Greece, the other city-states, could get their act together to defend Greece. And in the end, the Greeks did defeat the Persians. Now, you don't need to know about this. I just thought it would be fun. If you've seen the movie 300, you kind of get the idea of what this is all about. The battles that you will need to be familiar with, most likely, would be the Battle of Marathon and the Battle of Salamis, which are both Athenian victories. And Athens was not known as a military powerhouse like the Spartans were. So anyway, this is just a fun little video to show you how ridiculous it would be to fight 300 soldiers versus 250,000. Okay, so on to the content. This is the most important part of this unit. Greek contributions to Western culture. So what did the ancient Greeks do that inspire us today? So drama, you have Aeschylus and Sophocles. They wrote plays. So there was entertainment. They had these plays that people would go and watch, and only men could be actors. Now you see there's two of them that I put stars beside. The big one is poetry, Homer. He tells the tale of the Iliad and the Odyssey, which is the story of the Trojan War. Remember the Greek city-state Troy. And again, this is really important. You learn about Achilles, and then the Odyssey is about Odysseus. And after the Trojan War is over, Odysseus goes home to find his wife. The other big important one is History Herodotus. History Herodotus, History Herodotus. Some people couldn't remember it by saying his and hers. The other guy is Thucydides. So Herodotus is famous because he tells the tale of the Persian War. Thucydides is famous for his account of the Peloponnesian War. Then we have sculptures by Phidias. I always joke around and I would tell students Phidias made fat sculptures, pretty hot and tempting, because his name starts with PH and fat starts with PH. But again, that's something that ends up reoccurring on SOLs and benchmarks quite frequently, Phidias, but not quite as frequently as poetry and history. Another one that comes up quite a bit is Hippocrates. So if you look at science, it says Archimedes and Hippocrates. So Hippocrates is not directly related to science in the way that most people would think. He's a doctor. Now, the thing you have to understand is medicine falls under science. So it's almost like a trick question. So what you can do is when you see the name Hippocrates, just think of Dr. Hippocrates, Dr. Hippocrates. If you hurt your hip, where would you go? You would go to the doctor. And the last one here is math. That should be fairly easy for you. Pythagoras, I know you've probably studied that in school, the Pythagorean theorem, and it's pretty common. So most people have heard of that and don't have too much trouble with it. Next up, we have Greek architecture, and this one's super important. So there are three types of columns that you need to know. There's obviously more than three types of columns, but look at it like this. When you see columns, think of Greece. Ask yourself, do I see columns? Yes, I do. I see Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns. They're from the simplest to the most complicated. The Doric columns are very simple and plain. The Ionic, they have honey buns on them. Not really, it's supposed to be a scroll, but you see the point, it has the circles. And then last, the Corinthian columns are the most complicated. It's even hard to spell Corinthian, so any way you choose to remember it, it's the complicated ones. So when you see columns, think of them from the simplest to the most complicated. Ask yourself, do I see columns? Yes, I do. Doric, Ionic, Corinthian. And last up, this one might be the most important of all. You have philosophy. So what is philosophy? Philosophy is a Greek word that means lovers of wisdom. So there's three people that you need to know: Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. To help you remember, I call them the spa boys. They sat around in their hot tub philosophizing. I don't think that's a real word, but anyway, if that helps. So Socrates is famous for the Socratic method. What he did is he asked people questions, but he never wrote down any of his works. Plato, however, he documented the teachings of Socrates. So Socrates influenced Plato. Then after Plato, you have Aristotle. He made contributions to logic and criticism. He was influenced by Plato. So the key here is they could ask you, who inspired Plato? That would be Socrates because he came before. Or who was inspired by Plato? That would be Aristotle. So again, the order is important. That's why I'm saying spa boys, S-P-A. Socrates is first, then Plato, then Aristotle. And they learned in that order. Socrates taught Plato, Plato taught Aristotle, or Aristotle learned from Plato, Plato learned from Socrates. Okay, and finally, 2 release test questions. So Hippocrates, what did I tell you about Hippocrates? Let's look at the test choices first. Poetry, sculpture, philosophy, medicine. So Hippocrates, what happens if you hurt your hip? You go to the doctor. So when we look at the answer choices, medicine, J, that's the one that fits. Philosophy is the spa boys, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. Sculpture, fat sculptures, Phidias. Okay, next, let's look at our answer choices since there's no graphic. The spread of Greek culture throughout the empire, the introduction of Christianity to the Near East, the defeat of the Chinese army in Asia, and the destruction of the Athenian navy in battle. So the question is, which accomplishment is associated with Alexander the Great? So out of all those things, Alexander the Great is associated with Greek culture, spreading it throughout his empire. Okay, and to wrap up this unit, we have some keys for ancient Greece. These are some of the most important parts. So remember the importance of geography, rocky mountainous landscape, so lack of farmland. We saw that in the Assassin's Creed video. So they need colonies because of this lack of farmland. Greek mythology, it explains natural phenomena, human qualities, and life events, and its polytheistic religion, many gods and goddesses. Next, we have democracy. It's associated with Athens in particular, that's where it was created, but also with Pericles, the golden age of Pericles. That's where democracy was at its height. Next, we have the Persian War. It united Athens and Sparta, so they came together. The Peloponnesian War put Athens versus Sparta. They fought against each other for control of Greece. Homer is associated with poetry. He is responsible for the Iliad and the Odyssey. Achilles, who fought in the Trojan War. So all of those things are associated with Homer and poetry. History Herodotus, history Herodotus, history Herodotus. He told the tale of the Persian War. So Phidias, remember he created fat sculptures, pretty hot and tempting, just to play on his name, the PH. So Phidias made fat sculptures. This one's super important. Do I see columns? Yes, I do. Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian, from the simplest to the most complicated. The Doric, very plain. The Ionic has the O's or the honey buns, and Corinthian is complicated. Philosophy, lovers of wisdom. We have the Spa Boys, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Socrates taught Plato, Plato taught Aristotle. Science, Dr. Hippocrates. Who do you see if you hurt your hip? But remember, science, medicine, they go together. Medicine falls under the category of science. All right, see you next unit for Ancient Rome.